I don't agree with the Tea Party on some of their issues, but I do respect their sense of principle and their convictions. And I think that's something that a lot of us that aren't members of the Tea Party could really learn. The Tea Party has been incredibly effective politically. And what do I mean by that? If you look in the Democrats' sphere, you've got somebody like President Obama, who doesn't actually believe in anything, who's pretty, at least moderately conservative compared to like most of what his base is. On a regular basis, he betrays those who voted for him and the young people that are more progressive that believed what he had to say during the campaign. Now his attitude is, well, if you don't like the way I vote, then fuck you. You don't have anywhere to turn. And, it's an incredibly cynical attitude that he has, but, he has the luxury of making it because, he thinks that Democrats don't have anywhere to turn. And if you look at the way the Democrats vote and the way they behave, he's right. I don't know a group of people that could be more spineless than most of the Democrats that have been in power for the last several years. After Obama was elected, they had an unbelievable majority in the House and Senate, and they had the presidency, and they were barely able to get anything done. They were always on the defensive instead of being on the offensive. And it was really, really disgusting. Obama himself is incredibly spineless, but he seems to have a lot of backbone when it comes to stiffing over his base. I think what happens though is there are these Democrats that say, oh well, we're going to go with the lesser of two evils. We may not be happy with Obama, but he's still better than a Republican. Well, then they vote for him. And the thing is people are thinking very, very short term. People need to think more long term. If they were to withhold their votes and say to Obama, you fucked us, we're willing to stay home or endorse somebody else because of what you've done, he would lose, and yes, the country would have to deal with Obama or a Republican for 4 years. But you know what? When that 4 years were up and it came time, we would get a Democratic candidate that actually was a Democrat and would be able to do a good job and get in and make a difference. But as it stands now, when we choose the lesser of two evils, all we do is get a worse and worse form of government. Now, getting back to the Tea Party, the brilliance of the Tea Party is that the Tea Party had principles, they had values, they organized, and they got together and said, they put forth their own candidates when Republicans weren't listening to them, and they withheld their vote for people who didn't support them and stick by their principles. They pressured their congressmen into voting the way they wanted, and if they didn't, there was a price to pay. And you know what it did? It shifted the Republican Party back toward being more conservative, when otherwise it would have actually become more liberal after 2008, when the Democrats had such a huge victory and the Republicans were really knocked down. The thing about Tea Party folks is they have spine, and they stick by their guns, and they're not weak. And because of that, they get a lot of mileage out of it. I mean, if you look at the number of people that are a member of the Tea Party in America, it's not a huge percentage, but they've been incredibly politically successful. And I think for Democrats, they need to look to what the Tea Party has done and maybe learn a few lessons. There are a lot of folks who were members of the Tea Party who do have, real complaints about problems that our country has that need to be addressed. I mean, if you look at the amount of debt that we're taking on for the sake of foreign wars that are not being funded by actual real revenue, I mean that's a legitimate question. I mean they have problems with the bailout and corporatist policies. Well, members of the left would feel the same way. You look at a candidate like Ron Paul, who, again, I don't believe in a lot of his opinions about things, but he has, he's honest, he has integrity, and he has, some valuable things to say. If you look at the crackdowns on medical marijuana shops, which he's opposed to, if you look at the, a lot of the things that the government's doing that's been overreaching, and in a reactionary right-wing kind of way, they do have, I think, legitimate grievances. But, nobody is more spineless than and there are a lot of reporters and things too that are especially resigned when it comes to supporting their base and dealing with political realities. I remember when Ralph Nader ran in 2000, and then Al Gore lost, and all these liberals and other folks were all upset, saying, "Well, you cost Gore the election," and daring to be upset with Ralph Nader for exercising his citizen's right and civic duty to be a political candidate. I mean, anybody that would challenge somebody for exercising their rights like that, that is completely out of control and completely, I think, arrogant to assume that somehow, because there's only two parties, Gore was the only one that deserved to have a person who was to the left support. I mean, come on. I mean, the Clinton years were a complete disaster in terms of positions for people on the left. I mean, Bill Clinton was a sellout to corporate America, and his whole triangulation thing was nothing more than trying to build up his own career at the expense of working and just normal blue collar people. And people shouldn't pine for the Clinton years as if they were some kind of great time. I mean, it was Clinton, his administration is what helped get rid of the Glass-Steagall banking regulations that led to the eventual meltdown of the banking system in 2008. I mean, he was the one that supported, he supported NAFTA. I mean, Bill Clinton was definitely not a great person, and his administration was not a great one for non-rich people in America. And people to say, oh, well, anything's better than Bush, or, anything would be better than Mitt Romney as president. And at this point, I don't think that's true. I mean, if you look at Obama's record on immigration, on medical marijuana stuff, if you look at how his environmental record has been a complete disaster. I mean, he just gave up at Copenhagen completely. If you look at the way he has such cynical contempt for his own base, his betrayal on the Guantanamo Bay closing, he just signed a bill that allows indefinite detention for American citizens. He's basically worse than Bush when it comes to foreign policy stuff. And somehow, just because he's a Democrat, he gets a free ride. If the people on the left acted more like the Tea Party and put forth their own candidates and put in pressure and withheld their votes, the Democratic Party could actually be relevant again. But as it stands now, it's not going to happen, and it's unfortunate, I think, because we stand to have so much better. I mean, the two-party system we have now constrains our choices to giant douche or turd sandwich. Those are our two choices. And I'm not enthused about it. And I don't think anybody else who gives two shits about democracy should either. And so that's why when the next election comes, I'm not voting for Obama. I'm not voting for anyone who I don't believe in terms of their values. And that's just the way it's going to be. And sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. So if it means Obama losing this next time, for there to be change and for the Democrats to get together and build a backbone, well, then so be it.